This week, we walk the plains like we own the place. Become all about that base. Ignore the first 41 episodes. Learn that every little thing has a soul. And catch up with the legend himself, Mr. Peter Wocken. This and much more in this exciting episode of Rolling Doubles Podcast. Welcome to Rolling Doubles, a podcast about two board game enthusiasts who have never met and roll the dice on friendship. I'm Jacob. I have an unhealthy relationship with energy drinks, Russell.
And I'm happy as a clam, Ryan Schneider.
But how happy are clams?
Yeah. How happy are clams? That's a great question.
You know, I do want to think that when I look at a clam, it is always forever smiling. But you know what? I'm not sure. I'm presuming a clam's pretty happy.
Ryan's just hanging out like a tongue and just like
yeah,
a little like.
I feel like the end of a life of a clam, like if they're being consumed, is being pried in half. So that I guess they just aren't aware of their end condition. Because I think if I was aware of that, I would not be as happy.
That's always the adage old saying, happy as a clam. But that is now, but now upon further inspection, how would one know?
How would one know?
How would one know? Anyways, I'm just a happy person.
That's good to hear. You may have heard a third voice with us. We are so happy to have Mr. Peter Wocken here with us, a legendary, prolific graphic designer of board games. Thank you so much for joining us, Peter.
Pleasure to be here.
And I say prolific for a reason, and we'll go into that later with a formal introduction on your section.
I'll allow it.
Oh, thank you. One thing I'm very interested in is, what have you been playing lately, Peter?
I recently played some Magic the Gathering Global Series. Global Series is where it's from Wizards of the Coast, of course, 2018. And it's where they took a bunch of Chinese artists and folklorists and writers to create a dual deck of two planeswalkers that are, both, steeped in Chinese mythology. And I thought that was a really cool idea. Not just like, hey, we have planeswalkers that are, popping all over the place. It's like, there's tons of amazing stuff just in the world, so might as well explore that.
That's interesting to me because so my background in Magic is very, very minimal. It's probably about 8 or 9 years ago, and I got into it with my wife. We played it. We really enjoyed it. I just never kept up with it. Also, go back to like 5th grade, so maybe 25, 30 years ago. No,
25
20 years ago. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and I remember just Magic, and I just loved seeing it. I never did play it as a kid, but I always had friends who were into it. And so I've never really been into Magic. So I know very, very little. But one thing that does interest me always with Magic are those dual decks. Because those just pick those up and play those together and not have to worry about keeping up with everything. Now, are these competitive decks? Are they cards you can put into a legally competitive deck? I don't know how that works.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't play Magic that way. I just generally buy the dual decks and the planeswalkers decks that come out because it's kind of fun to mix and match stuff. And I'm a lazy deck builder because at the end of the day, I don't want to sort through thousands of cards to go, this combo seems interesting.
I get it.
I don't have the time or, just mental real estate to devote to that as a full-time hobby.
Yeah. No, it's true. That's why I stopped playing Netrunner or any LCG. I don't want to put the effort into building those decks. That's why I'm really interested in Keyforge. Yeah. Because you don't have to build decks. You can just kind of pick those up and play.
Well, even Netrunner, they had some pre-built decks. And so my wife and I played a number of games, and we just kept the pre-suggested decks and then might have swapped a card or two every once in a while. But
we did the base set?
Yeah, but we weren't doing deck building. It's like, well, that's what the game designer is for. Give us some balanced decks. Same with Ashes.
Ashes is great.
Yeah, I was gonna say with Android Netrunner, and I even think with other ones too. What FFG will do is they actually take the winning decks or the runner-up deck and will actually print those cards. So you could literally play as the winner of 2017, 2016, 2018, which I think is kind of cool because then that way you don't have to really go scouring. You can just go ahead, spend like $10 and do it. I mean, it's, I don't know, kind of corny, but hey, if I'm in the same boat. Man, sorting through all those cards, I just don't have the brain capacity to do it. So if you want to get in, really want to see how like a high skill deck is and have that background experience, it's pretty cool to be able to do that at a, cool base consumer level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
That's cool.
every once in a while, I'll just buy like a booster box of whatever the latest stuff is as, a business expense because lots of
Bingo.
publishers, and especially as a freelancer, I was talking to a lot of people that, were referencing Magic. And so that's how I kind of got into it.
That's awesome.
I was like, I should probably figure out what they're all talking about.
Okay, so here's a pop question for you. It sounds like your wife plays games with you as well, right?
Yep.
What's your favorite game to play with her? Or as a couple, what are you guys playing a lot right now that you like?
We haven't played it super recently, but I would say Matainai has been our go-to game. We've played 50 or 60 times so far.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that just the base set? Because I think there's an expansion for it, right?
We have Wutai Mountain, but we only played with that once or twice. Recently, we've been playing the game.
The game.
Yep.
Yeah. Talked about that.
Yeah. Okay, now for you personally, what's your favorite game of all time? I know we're supposed to do like the whole
small
genre,
stakes,
but I'm just really interested right now.
Small stakes right now.
Yeah.
I really don't like ranking stuff.
I'm the same way. It fluctuates like every day. I'll give you the top 5, and it's never the same top 5.
Oh, I'm not going to give you a top 5. I don't know.
I would say Matainai would be, wouldn't it? I mean, if you played that game like 50 times, I mean, I know for a fact that that's like a game that's always come up for you as being a favorite.
That's true. I would say, I'll hop into my Board Game Geek thing.
Yeah.
And see.
Okay, so as you do that, hey Ryan, tell us your history with Peter. I don't know how you guys know each other.
He's my boy.
Your boy.
It's been such a weird inside joke that a friend of mine has made fun of, and that's anyways. We're gonna move past on that. It is now forever, hopefully, dead and buried. Alas, Peter and I have been good friends now for quite a long time. I want to say at least a couple years. 3-4 years.
Be more generous than that. Yeah. At least.
We
if not longer.
We met through mutual friends, and I think the first time I met Peter was through a Thanksgiving event where it wasn't Thanksgiving, but Peter wanted to host or has been hosting a Thanksgiving event where he gets friends from the industry, family, friends all together, and we have turkey and we all bring over a game, and we have a game in which we all roll dice, and whoever rolls the highest gets a game from under the Wocken Christmas tree.
That's true.
And from there, I think we ended up through another mutual friend just getting together for game nights, and have always been in touch since. And I have now been able to start putting games to what Peter has made. Like I always on Twitter, I'll not most recently, but Sagrada was one. I was like, that was, he had done Sagrada took off, and from there it was like when he ever announced anything, I always wanted to make sure to give him the shout outs, and I'm just, it's very proud. It's always cool and proud to have any of my friends in the industry put out something for everyone to play, and so that's really cool.
I feel like I can't be just your boy though, because you've got a number of people in the industry.
Well, you are the original boy.
I'm the OG boy.
Yeah, the OG boy.
Let's not have that nickname stick.
It is already stuck long before you came on this podcast.
Excellent. Well, I do have some answers for you.
Okay.
I don't really rank things on Board Game Geek anymore, since especially I work with a lot of publishers, and I feel like it might be biased.
Yep.
But I've only ranked 4 games, and Lords of Vegas is a 10.
Classic.
Summoner Wars,
Also classic.
Matainai, and Pandemic Legacy Season 1.
Season 1, that's right.
I should really give those a chance. I never liked Pandemic, and I've heard it's just a lot of Pandemic.
It is.
And I should try it. I should try it again. I have a bad attitude towards it for some reason. I actually don't know why. I enjoyed the one play I had of it, but I had no desire to play it. Anyway, that's a discussion for another time. Hey, Ryan, what have you been playing lately?
So I've been playing a game that prior to this podcast, I had no idea, Peter, that you actually did graphic design for it, and that's Lucky's Misadventures.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Lucky's Misadventures is a game by Jay Meyer by Great Northern Games. The artistry is from Abigail Larson, Michael D. Clark, and of course yours truly, Peter Wocken. You did what part of the design did you do for Lucky's Misadventures?
Well, for most of the stuff, I do graphic art, so I did logo, card frames, icons, all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because I think
obviously rules.
Yeah, I think Abigail did the illustrations, right?
Yeah, she did most of the illustrations, and then all the mechanical ones were done by a different artist.
Yeah.
Did you get the puppy promo pack?
Oh yeah.
Excellent.
Yes, we did get the. So Sam actually, Sam Shimoda and he got his Kickstarter copy, and that's who I've been playing with, and it's actually hit the table since.
Nice.
A couple times when we get together on Sundays, he and I played it. And for those that don't know, Lucky's Misadventures, it is episode 42, Lost in Oddtopia, and it's there's no other 41 episodes. It's just episode 42.
That's really good.
But it's a deck building game. But what's cool about and I'm not a fan of deck builders, but what's cool about this deck building game is that out of a hand of 5, normally you just kind of play your hand, add up everything, and then buy something. In this one, you actually only play 3 cards out of the 5, and then there are 2 different kind of like tracks. Well, there's 3 tracks, but there's like 2 tracks that you can buy stuff out of. There's the Wicked track where you buy a combination of like Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz like interpretations. And then there's a junk track where you can basically buy like, what is it, clockwork gizmos or like time machines. There's like a bunch of different
and like stuff that you can cobble together into crafting different cards.
Right, exactly. So you can either win by points, you can either win by crafting like a series of like playing 3 cards from your hand that basically trigger the end game. Like you can get the 3 sisters, you can like invoke Pumpkin Ted, and there's
a whole bunch of like really specific win conditions.
Very specific win conditions, yes.
You are also feeding mushrooms to the Great Toad Overlord or something like that, and you're supposed to chant "Feed the Toad, feed the Toad."
Yes, you have to feed the toad. So there's this fate deck, and every time you flip cards in the fate deck, you have to like go feed the toad. And so we would like completely riff on, Sam and I would completely like, we would like chant it, and then we'd like put it in song form, which is another cue to the musical episode of this podcast.
It's happening.
Yeah, it's happening.
Excellent.
And so you also like pass around this really nice heavy coin that is a first player token. It's like a really, really cool first player token. But anyways, it's a really, really charming game. The instruction manual for it is actually really well written and done. Like it's great because Jay kind of goes into some personal touches in terms of like what he does playing the game. So it's like you have to chant "Feed the Toad." It's not a rule. Well, it might as well be, but but we certainly do it, which makes it a lot more fun. And then there was actually one of my favorite features of the game is if someone's taking too long to play the game, find a picture in the room and point and stare at it. Like that's what they say to do. And like there's no timer. There isn't like, hey, play. It's you just pick a random picture or point at something and just stare at it. That's all you do. And it's hilarious because we started doing it, and it's like totally like you kind of like you're like, oh, I really got to do something. So funny. It's great.
Well,
Yeah,
and Jay is local to the Twin Cities.
Yes.
And he's just a really great guy. And I've worked on that and also Council of Blackthorn with him.
Yeah. Noble Treachery is his first game, too.
Yes.
I know that Sam really loves anything J. Meyer puts out, and I can tell why with Lucky's Misadventures that this is a neat little deck builder. I like it a lot. Originally, the artwork put me off, but as I've played the game, I've actually been really keen on it now too. I think Abigail did lovely work on it, Michael, and of course yourself. And that isn't just because you're here. I think it's a really well put together game that has a very kind of unique art style that fits this whole mishmash of like a dark undertone of Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland to it. It's neat.
Okay, I should check that out. I think my wife would really enjoy that. For like half that description, I understood the words you were saying individually, but like put together, I still had no idea what was going on, and it sounds beautiful.
Oh yeah, check it out. It's all you need to know. It's a deck building game. There's conditional win scenarios by buying cards and laying them out on your hand, or after going through the Fate deck twice, the game just ends and you count up points.
So there's a natural timer for the end of the game, but there's always like conditional things that you can do to win the game faster.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not as crazy as like Flux or anything like that.
No,
right? It's more controlled than that. Okay.
No, you have way more control than a game like Flux.
Oh, that sounds great. And it's by Great Northern Games. What else do they do?
Council of Blackthorn.
Done Council of Blackthorn, and they've
Noble
done
Treachery.
Noble Treachery.
Those are the only. So this is the third game that they've done. Yep.
Well, what's awesome is Jay just creates games that he and his play group really enjoy playing, and like he just strips down other games, pulls out the components, makes his own thing, and he's got a ton of ideas. So
that's cool.
Hopefully, eventually, I have more bandwidth to work on some other stuff with them, but we'll see.
That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I'll check it out. Where can one find this game? Is it easily findable?
I assume so.
No, it's so Kickstarter backers were getting their copies, and I don't believe it's out on retail yet.
But it will be at some point.
I hope so.
I don't know.
So they used Quartermaster to fulfill. And Quartermaster, and that just might be for Kickstarter fulfillment. But as far as publishers go, Council of Blackthorn, at least here in Minnesota, I was able to find. I don't know if it might get to Utah or Colorado, wherever it might be. Who knows? I hope so. But
it doesn't look like their website's got a buy thing. You can probably just reach out to them.
If only we knew connections to Jay Meyer and Great Northern Games.
Well, I'm not gonna dox his email address.
Or no, just kidding. That's awesome. Okay,
but I will give you his actual home address. And that
thank you. I appreciate that. His phone number is
send him the snail mails
555
555-1212. Awesome. So I've been playing a game lately. I've been playing a game called Space Base. It's kind of been talked about a lot recently. It is in the style of Machi Koro from a few years ago. This came out this year, though. It's designed by John D. Clare. Artist is Chris Walton. And it's published by AEG. I'm a big AEG fan. I like what they do for the most part. I haven't played all their stuff, but I do enjoy what AEG does. I think they're a strong publisher. And this is definitely no... that's what I'm looking for, guys.
Walk into space.
It's no exception. This is no exception.
No float in the space.
This is this is a game where you are building your space base, which is a base full of space. And what it is that there are slots numbered from 1 to 12, and you are given 2 die on your turn, and you roll those dice. And depending on what rolls is what you can activate in those slots. And those slots are occupied by different cards, spaceships that are what the cards are. And those cards will do different things. They'll give you currency. They'll give you points. They'll have special abilities on them that let you activate different things. And so on your turn, you'll choose to either add the 2 dice up that can equal up to 12, hence the 12 spots, or you can take them individually. And so let's say that you roll a 4 and a 3. And so instead of doing a 7, you do card 4 and card 3.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's super clever. Now on other people's turns, your cards will also activate. So if you purchase a card to fill a specific slot on your game board, then the ship that's there gets docked and it's flipped upside down and put underneath the board, and it has a different value, and those are activated on other people's turns. So after a while, you have this amazing tableau of things that are activating on your turn, and if you play it right, things are being activated on other players' turns as well. And it's these cards will play off each other really well. It's just a super fun engine builder that has a very slow burn at first, but then it just ramps up like exponentially at the end, and it's just a great quick little game. So I actually got this. My wife and I have a date night, like an official leave the house, get babysitters date night once a month. And nice. It was my turn to choose what we did. So I was like, we're going to go buy a board game and then go play it somewhere outside of the house. Because we had a babysitter. I am nice. Full on romantic all the time, guys. The time. Anyway, she really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I'm excited. It's ripe for expansions. Like they can bring out more ships. They can bring out other things. It's very easy to get into this game. The rulebook is one of the most in-depth, unnecessarily deep rule book, I think. Like, it explains things multiple times in a row, which is good. I understand why they need to do that, but it can seriously be taught in like 5 minutes, even though it took us like 40 minutes to read the rule book. So it's good.
Did you do the prep in advance, or did you both sit down on your date for a 40-minute rule book?
Yeah, here's the thing, and that's the opposite of what I like to do, is we just went to a game store. I was like, I want to play that game. So we went and took it, and we took it and opened and read it. And that's like the way, man, if I want to get my wife to not like a game, that's how I teach it to her. That's happened multiple times. But despite that, she actually enjoyed this game and wanted to play again. Now I smoked her. Man, she didn't even have a chance, which also rarely happens. And she still wanted to play again after that. And that's how I knew it was a good game, is if she enjoyed it while she lost, because she can get kind of competitive. So it's just fun to have her enjoy a game enough to want to play it again after that. So I did that again with Root. I didn't buy it. It came to Kickstarter, and we weren't planning on playing a game that night, but we ended up playing a game. I was like, let's play Root. I think you'll like it. She hates confrontation type games where you're like fighting and people die, which is what Root is. But she actually enjoyed that, despite me opening the rule book, and we learned together. So it worked.
So anyway. Time for you to watch Rodney Smith videos or some other person.
Exactly.
Then get the overview.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so in general, what I like to do is make sure I'm prepared for game night. Either it's with my game group or with an evening with my spouse, where I will read the rules beforehand so she can just sit down and hear the soothing tones of my voice teaching her a game. But it worked with Space Base despite that. So I recommend it, Space Base. Have either of you played it yet?
I have not.
I have not either. I've seen it in stores. I've heard some buzz behind it, but haven't gotten a chance to play it. So that's really cool that you were able to play it, and seemed like it went over well.
Yeah. Did you guys ever play Machikoro?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I actually really enjoyed Machikoro. I know people kind of give it crap sometimes, but I enjoyed it. This completely replaces it for me. It's the same vibe.
Oh, sure.
It does the same thing better. I'm going to keep Machikoro because I really like the artwork, and I really like that gameplay as well, just because it does change things up enough to warrant both of them. But Space Base is, in my opinion, a superior game.
Well,
So-
if you like Machikoro, do you know that they're coming out with a legacy version?
I heard that, and the people were giving it so much crap, but I'm very excited about it.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I played through it at BGG Con last year, and super fun.
Okay, so explain it to me. Are you playing with the same people?
Yeah,
changing
you play with
between
the same
games?
people, but
Mhm.
it's Machikoro, but with just adding a little bit of extra stuff on, and you're opening packets and getting new cards, and then you could choose which side of the card you want to play on.
That's cool.
So you could have it be a little bit more aggro or a little bit more friendly, and yeah, just super cute, super fun, and it's gonna do incredibly well.
Yeah, I'm excited for that, especially with how much we like Space Base. I think I could definitely get behind Machikoro Legacy. Do you know when that's coming out?
I do not.
Next year, I think.
Next
if
year,
I
right?
recall,
Who's putting it out? Is it still?
No, it's Pandasaurus.
Yep, Pandasaurus.
Oh, it is Pandasaurus. Okay.
Yeah. So, Pete, I have a question about Machikoro Legacy. And maybe this is going maybe we can talk about this later, but it seems like what is Machikoro Legacy doing that isn't it like is it like you're getting a game of Machikoro that's basically kind of preventing you from getting the game as a whole, or what is it that Machikoro
just think
Legacy
of it as the first game in the Machikoro Legacy plays like a game of Machikoro.
Okay.
And then there's little objectives and you unlock stuff and the game advances. And
Cool. Is it the same art style?
I mean, it was when I played it. I was originally going to be working on it, and then now I'm doing Maple Games, and it seemed like potentially a conflict of interest.
I see.
So I'm not sure where it's at in any part of the cycle. But even when I played it last year, it was super fun, and they could have just made it as is, and it would have been awesome.
Let's give you a formal introduction here, Peter. Okay, so for some background, first for some perspective here, Peter Wocken is a freelance graphic designer. Would you still consider yourself a freelance graphic designer?
I would say that I can still officially work freelance, but I am currently not working freelance based on the fact that running a company is a lot more work than I thought it would take.
Is it okay? See, that's interesting. So recently, Peter Wocken and others, who we will talk about later, have started Maple Games, and their first game is coming out on Kickstarter. When?
October 2nd.
October 2nd.
It's a Michael Schott game called Dragon Boats of the Four Seas, and it's a really fun worker placement game where like you can place workers at the same spots and they stack up, and so in order to pay for stuff you have to pay for whatever level you're at. So if you're the fourth disc,
cool.
you'd have to pay 4 for something, but you can kind of do some active denial for people getting the resources that they need. And so you're gathering stuff at the docks, and then you're giving offerings to the dragon boats, and then you're going to these different islands and putting down farmers to set up little farm settlements, or you can climb the mountain and gain wisdom, and you're collecting tile sets for points, and you're collecting there's a couple of different ways to win, but long run you'd need points to do it. But
that sounds so good.
We heard about it, we played it, and we just loved it so much that it was like, I think this would be a really solid first game.
That's that's exciting. Like there must be a lot of excitement behind the first game because it's a lot of unknown. It's kind of going to tell your story as a brand new publisher and kind of set that foundation. So that's exciting, and that sounds like a hit. I love worker placements where you stack things. A game I really like is Chimera Station. I don't know if you played that one yet.
I have not.
It's by
TMG.
Thank you, TMG, and it's another worker placement and things stack, but it's your own things that stack. You make little aliens that have different powers. Anyway.
Well, what's really fun as well is you have a 4th worker disc, and depending on what you want to have as your starting resources, you put them on cards, and the cards are activated per round. So if you get something really juicy, you might not get your fourth worker until the fifth round, but you have more resources to start with. So there's a fun little
cool.
track for just kind of tracking the rounds, and you play up to 6 rounds.
Oh man, okay. I'm excited. Now, to help put other things into perspective, now I said earlier that you're a prolific board game graphic designer. I'm going to list off a whole heap load of games that you've worked on, then I just pull this off of your website. So, here we go. I've heard of a lot of these, but not all of them. Here we go. Dead of Winter, Sagrada, City of Remnants, Zaya, the Cold War, CI versus KGB, Masmora, Legacy Gears of Time, Anomia, Vault Wars, Unusual Suspects, Bioshock Infinite, March of the Ants, Council of Verona, Lagoon, Epic Resort, Council of Blackthorn, Nautilus Industries, Backyard Builders Treehouse, Looters, Tides of Infamy, Dodeca, Pirate's Den, Video Game High School, Play Me, Gear World, Where Art Thou, Romeo, Blood Bowl, Team Manager, Clash Fighter, Dinosaur Island, Rivet Wars, Mansions of Madness, Nexus Ops, Rock Band Manager, Seikatsu Myth, King of Clubs, Rivet Wars. I said Rivet Wars twice, but
and
that's it.
And I haven't updated it in a while.
I was going to say,
games
I think that's been like that for a while.
For example, that are out
Nyctophobia,
now,
right?
That I'm letting future Peter update the website. I don't really need to right now. Eventually I should.
At some point. But that is just a ton of games. There's history there with Fantasy Flight. There's history there with CMON and other publishers.
Plaid Hat.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Plaid Hat as well. So when did you start? What's your early history with doing board game graphic design?
I actually started out at Fantasy Flight Games. Here, let me pull up my LinkedIn profile because I don't remember. Let's see.
I don't want to make it seem weird, but I think you started off in marketing, didn't you?
Oh, I did start off in marketing. I'm just trying to get the time frame.
Were you a board game player before starting at Fantasy Flight, or did working at Fantasy Flight make you a board game player?
I was a board game player. I've definitely played a lot more board games since then.
Has it made you like board games less working in the industry?
I feel like I played board games less because
I've heard
that's
like
true.
You're actually working on them and you don't actually have time to play them as frequently. So it looks like I started at FFG in 2009 and worked as a marketing graphic designer for a few years. That's, making ads for BGG. I don't know if they still do it, but they had like iPads in board game stores for a while where it showed like trailers for the games. Like had to learn how to do After Effects to do some of that stuff. Every time a new game came out, we had to reskin a game page.
Yeah.
So
those booklets.
Organized play kits, things like that.
Okay. At FFG, what do you think would be your biggest project there, or what was the biggest game you feel like you had the biggest hand in?
That's a good question. I would say I started off with Nexus Ops, which was pretty exciting because that was a game I enjoyed playing.
Yeah, that's a great game.
And let's see, what else did I work on at FFG? I really enjoyed Cold War.
Oh yeah.
So didn't really do a lot other than resize everything for a different sized box and things like that.
Yeah, because that was a game they later rethemed for Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Also a great game. That's cool. Okay, so when did you make the jump then from working at FFG? When did you make the jump to freelance graphic design?
Back in, I think 2011, my wife and I decided to move to France. She was able to get a sabbatical through her company, and that seemed like a really natural time to kick off more of the freelance style. And I decided to be very intentional about marketing myself as a board game graphic designer specifically, because if you just say graphic design, it's almost too generic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I had met Colby Dow at Gen Con the previous, before I left, and he was wondering if I was available for stuff, and I was like, well, that'd be a conflict of interest right now, but in a few months I actually have time to do stuff. And so I did a couple of icons for Mice and Mystics, and then quickly got into a lot of the other games in the Plaid Hat lineup. Not Summoner Wars, but a lot of their other stuff for a few years.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so from there, you starting freelance with Plaid Hat. It sounds like Plaid Hat really helped you kick off your.
Plaid Hat absolutely helped kick off my career, and kind of at the same time that I was starting to work and ramping up work with them, I got contacted by Ben Harkins from Floodgate Games and started working on Legacy Gears of Time, which was his first game. And I've essentially worked on everything for Floodgate Games up until, the very recent past. So
yeah, oh, that's cool.
All the way up to stuff like Sagrada.
Ben Harkin's such a good dude.
Oh, Ben's amazing.
Yeah, congrats to him, and he just recently got married. That's really exciting. Yeah, they're having a Kickstarter too coming out. Bad Maps actually coming out tomorrow as we are recording this. So good luck to him and Floodgate for their success with Blood Maps, Bad Maps.
Hopefully not Blood Maps. But yeah, Bad Maps is actually one where I worked on some of it and then handed that off as I was transitioning into more Maple Games type stuff.
Okay, so let's talk about Maple Games. This is let's see, when did you guys officially announce it? Was it not Gen Con? It was well before Gen Con, right?
It was May. Daryl and I officially, or May is when I started officially on the books, but probably March. Daryl and I started talking about, forming our own company. We had met at a number of different conventions. He was the co-designer of Sagrada, so and he also worked at a number of different companies, including IDW, and so I just worked with him on a number of projects so we were really comfortable with each other, and we both brought different skill sets to the table, and
that's cool.
Yeah, felt very compatible.
So what are you hoping to do differently, or what are you hoping to bring to the table that's different from other publishers with Maple Games?
Our goal, obviously, is fun. That's first and foremost, because you're playing games. You want to have fun. And I'm the creative director, so my goal is to always have them be just visually, super amazing looking. Because, there's a reason that people play games at the table, and it's not because it's because they really, having those tangible artifacty things that you can touch and interact with, and you're sitting across the table. If you're going to do that with friends, you might as well be a gorgeous experience. And that's something that I've always tried to keep pushing is how can we up the game in the games that are coming out, and how to make those experiences just, moments of joy.
It's I think it's truly prevalent in Sagrada. I think that's where people really started to realize that the dice and crafting this the window, what is it? What am I thinking? Yeah, the stained glass window is where really that I think started to really kind of come through, is that game, and to know that this is what you're doing now with components. You're making sweet art and interacting with these really cool mechanics. And so I can totally agree with you as well too, that having good looking componentry and interacting with people immerses you that much deeper into the game. And I do think to a degree also makes the game a bit more or fun to play and fun to interact with, so
and you might as well enjoy the visual spread in front of you, because I don't want it to just play a game that's a boring looking game.
Well, it's true. I mean, the whole idea is you're having an experience with these people, and anything you can do to support that experience is crucial. I think people are kind of afraid, or I think sometimes people think, oh, I just want good gameplay. I don't really care what it looks like. But I don't think that's true, especially for me, where, yes, there does need to be great gameplay, but it needs to be supported with a great experience in general. The gameplay can be fantastic, but if your components are not supporting that, or if they're not helping teach the game, or if they're not making it easier to play the game to enjoy that great gameplay, then it kind of just negates itself. And so I definitely think there is an importance to that. That's exciting.
Completely agree.
So yeah. So are there plans to publish your own games, Daryl's games, or are you guys just hoping to bring
Daryl's
in just
awesome
other
at
people's?
making games. If we have the right game that feels like it'll fit into our lineup, then yeah, we'd sign it. But I mean, he's a freelancer too, so sometimes like you'll still see things like the Ghostbusters game just got announced that he's working on.
Speakeasy Blues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's like if it feels like the right game, like our just kind of general rule of thumb is a Days of Wonder style game.
Okay.
Also for Kickstarter, like we're not going to do stretch goals like we're going to upgrade the card component quality or whatever. It's like, no, we're just going to say this is going to be a really high quality game. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that's a value proposition that people are excited to back. And I don't want to say, oh, it's going to be this really flimsy, paper stock, but if you guys all pitch in, we can upgrade it. It's like, no, it's like, if you're going to do it, let's just do it well.
See, and it's so true. It's been really interesting to see that trend in Kickstarters in general, right? Because for the longest time it was, let's put out this middle product and then get better or get the full game out through stretch goals. But we've seen that more often, and I think there's a lot of power in that, and I think it sets expectations early on, and I think there's a lot of good behind that, and I love when publishing companies do that. I think that's super smart.
Thanks. Yeah, we're hoping that that's something that people feel like, hey, that's something that's worth backing, and obviously we hope to eventually be in retail and things like that, but like at least short to medium term, if it doesn't get backed on Kickstarter, then we just won't print it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So even though we've spent a lot of sweat equity in it, it's like at the end of the day, if it's something that doesn't seem like it would resonate with people, then I'd rather say, nope, it's got to be a certain level of quality, or what's the point of doing it?
Yeah. So what's been your general response from people as you've been playtesting it, as you've been taking it to cons, things like that? Overall, what's the reception been like?
People have really been digging on, like, especially like the stacking mechanism on, just like, ooh, that's a really fun way of doing worker placement, and they haven't even seen kind of what the final thing is going to look like. Right now it's at maybe 60% of what the final version will be, because I'm planning on making 3D cardboard boats, so it'll kind of look like little fun
Dragon
sculptures that you're moving around the board, and just really excited about how it's just going to all visually come together, and I've got that all in my brain. It's just a matter of spending the time to actually get that out.
Yeah. Well, I think there's heavy boat competition in board games now since Container came out. So unless your boats are like 8 inches long and can kill someone, I think you have a long way to go.
Honestly, like that's something that we didn't want to do. Like, we actually talked about like, well, Container came out, like, should we be doing like plastic sculpts of the boat? And it's like, no, it's a more of a Euro style game, so we're not going to do plastic components in there. One thing that I'm excited about that hopefully we get a stretch goal for is including a little fan, like an actual fan that you can use as the first player token.
I love it.
It's like, why not?
Yeah. See, that's what stretch goals are great for.
Yeah, exactly. I can make it out of punch board. It'll look nice, but Might as well step it up.
That's really funny.
I do want to also make mention too that Maple Games is not a 2-person team. It is actually a 3. It's at least that I'm aware of a 3-person team, and I know that you guys have Jessica Davis, who has been doing some extremely awesome social media work for you guys. So talk to me about how having Jessica on the team has made Maple Games that much better.
Jessica is amazing. She's a perfect example of why we want more women and diverse voices, like making content for people. And she's just got a really natural eye for awesome games. She's working on some of the dev stuff and some social media stuff for us. And yeah, she's just super awesome. So we've been very blessed to have her on the team.
I know that she's been doing some social media, like live streaming on Facebook, answering people's questions, and I've been seeing that viewer count go up every single time. She's everywhere too. She did like a whole like stretch this summer where she literally attended, I think, every single convention for board games that existed. She hustles her butt off, and she does an amazing job. I have no idea how she's like able to like still be with it. Like, she's just everywhere. It's incredible. It's crazy. And so
she's
really
also
cool.
like the world leader in playing the Mind.
Yeah. That's right. She has over 200 games of the Mind, like on a single copy. Yeah, over 200 games.
I'm still waiting for my stupid pre-order.
She had it. I think she. I saw it on social media too. She was able to go and meet the designer and
Wolfgang Warsch.
Yeah, and be able to play with him and stuff. And I think she had made mention too that like she was definitely like an advocate for that game. Like everywhere she went, she had played it with a bunch of people. It was so awesome.
Absolutely. She's been a very great evangelist for the Mind.
That's
awesome.
Cool.
That's
so I do have a question about outside Maple Games. Just your pass on other games you've worked on. Which games kind of stand out in your mind that you've worked on, maybe you are super proud of, or that was super fun? Actually, let's be more specific. What's one of the most fun games you've been able to work from? And I'm not talking about like fun gameplay, but like the whole project itself was just super fun.
I would say kind of anything with Pandasaurus. They're amazing to work with, but like Dinosaur Island was super fun because they kind of let me do whatever.
Yeah. Well, look at that game. The game just looks fun to look at, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely divisive as far as the visual aesthetics, but at the same time, they've got a snap bracelet. We've got like custom metal coins. We've got just dual layer punch board, all that fun kind of stuff that is just kind of in there, adding to the look and the feel of the game.
I'm so excited for that game. I jumped on the second Kickstarter. Apparently there was split shipping I wasn't aware of, so now I have to wait till like November, which I know is just like 2 months away, but
well, that means you'll get Duelosaur Island too, and that'll be fun.
I didn't do that one.
What?
I know. I regretted it instantly.
Well,
also play
hopefully you'll be able to get it at some point. It's a really fun version. But honestly, like anytime I can work on components that aren't in a typical game, like that's something I really enjoy doing. Anytime there's custom metal coins, especially, like that's just really fun to do. And I'm not like 3D modeling them or anything. I'm just making a grayscale bump map in Photoshop.
So what game in your past has kind of stretched you the most, or has helped you grow the most?
I think honestly Sagrada has, because what happened with Sagrada was like the player windows event. Initially I had them like designed and they're like twice as tall, and I was like, nope, that's totally not going to work, because otherwise it'd be like a 2 foot tall game. That's what the giant version of Sagrada is for.
Yeah, I was going to say that's out there. Yeah.
But it was like like you think through things in almost more of a mechanical, like production style way, where like the player board itself, like your window, is 3 pieces of cardboard. So you're thinking like through what's on every single layer. So that first layer is the window, and then there's these black borders, and that all gets punched out. And then there's a secondary layer, which is just, a fairly thin piece of material that's wide enough where you can slide in new window pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, there's actually a honeycomb to reduce the amount of weight, just because the game was weighing so much.
Yeah.
And then the bottom layer is technically a 2-sided print, because you have to print like the little glass for the window underneath, and then obviously the backside of the thing. And so it's a lot more thinking through, how does this thing get actually produced and shipped, and thinking through that side of things is really intriguing for me.
So are you able to work with the printers over in China then at times? Are they working with you directly, since you are kind of behind the production of that? Or are you just kind of giving the files to the publisher and being like, good luck with these, let me know if you have any questions?
For every publisher, I did a different level of service. It was just based on what they were interested in. But
okay.
At least in the past, generally, it was more playing a game of telephone and occasionally getting connected directly with the factory. And then people at like Panda Games Manufacturing, like I harassed all the time on just like, hey, weird question, how would you do this or that? And, kind of figure that out.
Oh, that's cool. Were they pretty easy to work with in general? Like, are they open with ideas, help you formulate ideas over at Panda?
Yeah. They seem to be really good at, as far as like you get a manager that, like project manager that works in the US or whatever region you're in, and kind of is your liaison between, you and the factory, and being able to do all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, there's a reason they're more expensive than a lot of other printers, but also, I don't know, I've always enjoyed working with them. But, depending on the publisher, I don't, like, in the past, I didn't really choose who we printed with.
Right. Oh, that's cool. I'm taking up a lot of the time, right? Do you have any questions over on your end? I'm just talk.
Actually, no, I want to be able to ask you, in that same line of format, as a freelancer, you went to Plaid Hat, you worked on Mice and Mystics, and you were able to get into that line, and you're starting to broaden out too, because I know that you've done work with the Ascension people, with Simon, those types of things, Pandasaurus as well too, to a point where like, I bet you kind of had your pick of the lot in terms of what you wanted to work on. So I was curious as far as like those, you've done a lot of Floodgate stuff because Ben is local, and I think there is a lot of his ideas that are super awesome. Same with Jay Meyer. What about the other ones, like with Simon and stuff? Like, are these opportunities that arise and you take them because there's like some backstory between you and the publisher, or is there like more motivation that draws you to want to work on those types of games? Or what is that motivation that gets you to work on these projects, I guess, is maybe a better question to ask.
Well, I wanted to make sure that as a freelancer, I always had a wide portfolio of companies that I was working on. I didn't want to just be working on Kickstarter type projects. I wanted to work with a variety of different publishers. And so every year, like, my goal was to, work with a couple new publishers. Every time I went to a convention, like, I wasn't going to conventions to just play games. That was my time to either interact with publishers that I'm pretty much only like seeing face to face at conventions because they're not local, or a good way to, get a foot in the door with other publishers.
Right.
And so it was a lot of just kind of hustling at conventions. It's a smallish industry, so eventually you just get to know people,
Yeah.
and like the more successful you are, the more people are like, hey, I like what you do. What are your rates and things like that?
Yeah.
And so just over time, I was able to like, go from, not being able to make a livable wage and just picking up projects here and there to eventually having to turn down a majority of the projects that um, popped up. And that allowed me to obviously filter for things that were of interest to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, that's interesting that you say that it's a smallish industry right now, but I'm sure from your perspective, well, there definitely has been a lot of change, but from your perspective, uh, as a freelance graphic designer, what's been the biggest changes in the industry that you've seen?
Uh, I think the consolidation of some of the bigger companies and even mid-sized publishers has been really interesting. Like, for example, half my clients were eventually owned by Asmodee. Um, but I don't know. Like, I I think there's still a lot of room to grow. There's just the trick is figuring out how to make the stuff that you make stand out in the crowd of like 8 to 10 new games every day.
Yeah.
It's like how do you stand out? It's like you got to push the medium somewhere, and you got to you know make it look really good because people don't have much time to um, make a choice because they're continuously being flooded by new games all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back a little bit back to Maple, and I want to talk about something that I think, in terms of wanting to be able to differentiate yourself from who's actually out there. You and Maple Games are actually doing something that I've not seen before, and that is you had been broadcasting your work on Dragon Boats on Twitch.
Yep.
So
Sure.
so like I know that I've participated in a few different streaming sessions, but normally a lot of this work that you are doing is hidden from the general audience. And you are not, I honestly think you're one of the first designers I think to openly come out of like a fairly like no one from FFG or from the Asmodee crew that I'm aware of I think goes out there and says, okay, this is my process. I'm literally going to talk through this and show you guys. So how has that whole process been for you?
It's been really good, interesting as well because like I don't know what to say, and sometimes it's just myself on the stream. So I'm just mumbling stream of consciousness and making sound effects as I'm doing brush strokes. And it's like, yep, I'm kind of saying stuff. Here's what I'm thinking now. So I'm hoping that becomes a little bit more fluid over time. But one of my goals with Maple Games, especially as the creative director, is I want to elevate the arts and elevate creatives. So in our artist contracts, like we say, hey, we feel comfortable if you want to stream your process as well. Like it might not be for everybody, but hopefully some of our artists will also want to stream on Twitch or YouTube or some form like that to just show people a peek behind like their process and what they're creating. And a lot of other companies, you've got your NDAs and you can't talk about something till it's on the website or whatever. But I figure if I'm the co-founder of the company, I can share stuff because there's zero downside to sharing stuff. And it's not like people are going to be screen capping my work and going, oh, I can make that first and faster.
Yeah.
And I just want to, invite people into the conversation. I know like for Ryan, we've just talked about random, like, card layout stuff in master pages. And if people are interesting to talk to for a while, then like if I'm working on something where it seems like I could throw in an Easter egg like their name or an image or something like that, I'll totally do it. So Ryan, for example, is,
I'm in some rocks.
Yeah, he's in
I'm in some rocks.
He's at the beginning of a stream in the island of Cinnabar.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, whoever popped in the stream, Peter would put their name into the game somewhere. I took a screen cap so I can remember when the game gets printed where I'm at. But like my name is like ingrained into a start of a stream on a mountain. So
it's like well, I'm making
really
rock
funny.
type things. I can write in names and then just kind of blend it in. So it's not going to be super obvious. Like, oh, there's a name right there, because that just would be distracting. But for example, one of the guys that was watching, he was like, hey, my kid was wondering if you could make a unicorn. So there's a unicorn on the map right now.
Oh, that's
Is it historically accurate for the Han Dynasty? Nope.
Yeah.
But it's cool. So
it's both crowdsourced and funding and ideas.
yeah.
So
and it's like, so maybe during the Kickstarter, I'm tempted to just, be streaming and have people that are backing just like, hey, tune in to, what is it, like twitch.tv/Maple Board Games or something like that.
No, that sounds right.
But just tune in and then, watch the game getting made.
Yeah.
And then there's a backlog of stuff. Although I think Twitch kind of wipes stuff after 14 days. So some of that stuff will just kind of vanish over time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Twitch has been interesting for me. I'm going to continue to do it and see what happens with it. But I mean, I'm not going to Twitch everything that I'm doing because nobody wants to see somebody typing emails.
Or do they?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or maybe
man. There's
that's
some
a market
interest.
that I
If
just
my name can end up in an
haven't
email, I'm
really
there.
fully tapped into.
So what's been so outside of board games, what's inspiring to you, or what's inspiring your work outside of board games?
I would say, honestly, it's just stuff around me. I try to, give my eyes a break every once in a while and walk around or go kayaking or something like that, and just kind of looking at the natural world. And that's inspiring. Walk to a bookstore, look at stuff. The website ArtStation has incredible portfolios. I'll just kind of look through a lot of those. Then it's like, oh, crap. There's so many amazing artists out there. How can I get them for Maple Games?
Okay, how about within the industry? Is there anyone in the industry, in the board game community, that's really inspiring to you, or that has influenced you?
I've really enjoyed what Quan Chai Moria's been up to.
He's awesome.
He switches it up all the time. So I think most illustrators can work in any style, really.
Yeah.
But honestly, when you're in school, sometimes they're like, oh, pick one style and, really develop it out. I've never been that kind of illustrator. And I don't know.
Yeah.
His illustration of the cover of Bosk is A+.
Yep.
It is A+. That's another Floodgate title that's coming out. It is a magical piece. Please look it up on Board Game Geek. I think it's one of my favorite pieces.
That's a national park look. BOSK.
BOSK.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that. Yes, once you said national park.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
So one of the questions, this may seem a little bit out there, but I think this might be an interesting question. I want to say, I'm going to throw out a bunch of eras, and I want to see whether or not you can kind of incorporate that into years, whether it's in your career timeline or not. But the Dark Ages, the Golden Age, or Golden Ages, or the Renaissance Age, out of board games, where do you think those types of eras fit within the community? What has been the Dark Ages of board games? Or what has been the Renaissance age of board games, or have we always been in a Renaissance age, or the golden era of board gaming? Like, I'm curious what you think, if that's even possible. I just thought it was like thinking about it because I've heard people say, "Oh, we're such in a Renaissance period," or we're in the
golden age of board games right now.
Yeah,
I think we're just barely scratching the surface of what we can do in games, and my goal is to make sure we're exploring what we can do with the medium. Like right now, a lot of the publishers will do just like, hey, this is a meeple and this, little Catan pieces and, things that you've seen in other games. And print media can do super incredible things that we're just not even activating yet. So I think we're just like, yes, we're in a golden age. Sure. I'm sure people are making gold off of their games. But at the end of the day, like, I think that, it'll kind of go up and down and continue to evolve and grow. And I think it'll just continue getting more interesting. So we're entering the age of enlightenment, maybe.
The age of enlightenment. I like that. Okay, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, too, because, I think Fantasy Flight and their release of unique card games and now unique board games.
Yeah.
Like, what is that going to do?
Like a procedurally generated games where you can't own everything.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
collectible board games, CBGs.
Wait, what's
collectible?
Collectible.
Collectible. Thank you.
Collectible.
I would say, we'll see how those go over with people. Like, I'm excited that they're trying out that. I'll be curious to see what technology they're using to, do all that. I'm assuming it's black plate replacement stuff, but all the card backs and Keyforge are different, and that's CMYK.
Yeah.
So I guess they'd probably just using digital press stuff. So I'm curious to see like what their tech is behind that. And it could be like 504, a really great experiment on what's possible, and maybe some of the parts are excellent, maybe some of the parts are okay, or maybe it's all incredible. I don't know. I haven't played it. So it's tough to say.
I was so excited for 504. I probably should still check it out though. But it's true. Like, people are pushing the envelope here, and I guess it just depends on what gets adopted. Like, I really hope these things that FFG is doing aren't too gimmicky, and it actually does have a lot of substance to it. That's what I'm hoping happens. So then it can be evolved after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it looks like they've started to go outside of their traditional comfort zone of visuals, and that's exciting.
Yeah, totally.
That's something that I'm going to be pushing, is like getting artists that I'm excited about that aren't necessarily doing, like, board game artists involved in projects.
I mean, we're already seeing that in other places too. Like, Feudum started that way, Scythe started that way. There are these games that the art is being done by people who aren't even aware of the industry at times.
Like Imagineers, for example. We've got an artist named Apolline Etienne. I think I'm probably butchering her last name a bit, but her Etienne. But she does incredible art, and I found her on ArtStation, and it's like, hey, sweet.
That's cool.
Let's have her do some art for us. And I've been very excited about how it's all turned out.
Yeah. So speaking of Imagineers, I think I know that you guys do have not only just Dragon Boats, but you have Imagineers, which is a roller coaster or theme park like board game that is in the works, right? And then you have one that I'm interested in, and I've never really heard of it. But what's the comic book one you have? It's like called
Mind Management. Right? Mind Management is by a guy named Matt Kint. he does. It's kind of like taking Lost and just like, it's kind of like the CIA, but where they're doing like the taking and training people for like ESP and other like things that you use your mind to like manipulate the world around you. And
That's cool.
yeah, we're gonna be doing something in his style, so kind of like a 1960s style, and then I'm gonna kind of do a Dharma Initiative style version of the game as well. And that way, like, it'll be the same game, but it'll be two different versions, kind of a fan edition and not a training wheels edition, but like, a different looking style. But he's like, as a comic book artist, has pushed the medium where if you look up mind management is MGMT. And like the actual comic book pages themselves, like it looks like it's just using the blue like panel layout grid stuff, and then he's got stuff on the sides in like cyan and magenta, and just like really highly embedded art and suggestive stuff within the comic. And like visually, like it took a while for me to get into, and then once I was into it, I was like really hooked. And it's an amazing story.
I just want to let you know that as soon as you made mention of Lost, and when my wife listens to the podcast, she will be immediately sold. I guarantee it. I just know that it's been touted a lot, and I think it's something people should.
Yeah, and it's by the Bamboozle brothers, so Senfu Lim and Jay Cormier.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really exciting. Fantastic. And then we've got other stuff in our pipeline as well that we'll announce at some point.
On this podcast.
Exclusive. Yeah.
Sweet deets right now.
Exclusives for you.
Yeah. Oh no. That's good stuff.
I mean, we've got other stuff that, is going to come down eventually that I think has been announced. So like we're remaking Octopus Garden, which is a really fun game under the sea.
That I haven't heard of.
Okay, hold on. Is that like a phrase from something? There was a store growing up called Octopus Garden
it's in the Beatles.
In my neighborhood?
Like, I think.
That's why.
But it's not a Beatles-based game. And we're going to be retheming it. Or not retheming it, but I think renaming it to Starfish Kingdoms. We'll let future us worry about that. But yeah, there's just lots of stuff. We've got an Alan Moon game, or Alan Moon and Bobby West. So we're working on that. Yeah, we just got a lot of stuff.
Awesome.
Exclusives.
Yeah.
Dude, that's actually a really sweet word. I'm gonna drop in exclusives.
I think that's from what's the one with Scott Ackerman?
Comedy Bang Bang.
I think that.
Oh, I just got into that.
Yeah.
It's so good.
So not an original term from me. Sorry.
Oh,
that's
dang.
Fine.
Right,
non-exclusive.
All right, well, I still enjoy it.
It's been fun hearing kind of just the what goes on in the background. There's so much effort put into board games, and I think people just take it for granted. They see this final production copy and they play it, and they easily just kind of rag on the slight imperfections without really understanding everything that goes into it, especially from your standpoint where you are able to put all this work in and get that final product and just kind of have all this come to one solid work of production. It's exciting to kind of hear the story of what goes
and there's so much stuff that
I
didn't even scratch the surface on, but like the development side of things, like Daryl's doing that all the time, taking games that we've signed and breaking them down, making them better, making them play faster and more fun, and getting kind of the essence of the game. And so, talk to some
cool.
developers that, that's their specialty.
Yeah, and that stuff just blows my mind. Like, I'm thinking about games that I'm playing, and it's amazing what people can do and how they can be able to create, how they're able to create things like this. It's just, wow, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any other questions on your end, Ryan?
No, I'm just no. I think it's a good place to wrap up. And I was just gonna say that as far as where you can find Maple Games, I know that they've not had official presences in terms of like the most recent Gen Con or Origins. I know in Origins you were camped out at that one like hotel bar and stuff. But I'm assuming that we're gonna be seeing a lot more of you guys after this Kickstarter. Specifically, I know that you're going to Essen.
Going to Spiel Essen.
Yes.
That's really exciting.
Oh, yeah.
As far as like conventions though, like it's kind of tough to like get booth space when you're like, here's our prototype version of the game. Just imagine what it could look like. We're definitely planning on rolling out stuff further as far as like when we'll like hit the ground running on like, here's the Maple Games booth. I'm not sure where we're at yet on that. One thing that I am really excited about and kind of working on in the background is, I don't know if either of you have been to KublaCon before. It's in San Francisco. It's a really great convention from what I've heard, and I'm planning on doing like a pop-up art gallery. So like a gallery art opening thing with Maple Games art, and I'll probably try to wrangle some other artists and show originals and maybe do some prints and have cheese and wine and all that kind of gallery opening type stuff. Just because at the end of the day, like we want to be, positioning ourselves as really caring about the visuals and the art side of things. And so... a gallery opening. It makes sense.
It does. Interestingly enough, it does because I think cover art is a huge proponent in terms of what draws me into being like, what is this game actually? It's the name, it's the art. That art pops. You look at it and you're like, okay, I want to turn this box around, see what it's about. Or even I'm completely guilty of buying games right off the shelf.
I know. I've seen
Paper Tales.
I've seen you do that, and then I've played the games that you picked off the shelf. I was like, cool, let's play
it. Paper Tales, most recently by Stronghold Games, has this really sweet box art, and not gonna lie, 80% of the reason why I bought that game was because it had that really sweet title or the really sweet box cover on it. Like it's this picture of like a king, and it has like a bunch of little tiny illustrations. So cool. So being able to have an art gallery based upon all that, like just in its in its picture form, I think is a great idea. No joke. That's sweet stuff.
Yeah,
no joke.
I don't joke.
No joke.
Because you said no joke.
Okay, so stop joking.
No joke.
No joking.
Serious time.
No, stop, guys. Okay. It's funny to hear that all this stuff's happening for you. I wish success for many years upon you and your team. I appreciate you taking the time, especially on freelance. Time literally is money, so I appreciate you taking the time and chatting with us. It's fun to hear people in the background or what's going on in the background. So I do appreciate that. I do have some other quick questions to ask you quickly, but first I need to know, when did you graduate high school?
2001.
Okay, great. Okay, I was 02, and so these questions will be more applicable to you. Okay, flash questions: Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera?
I don't know. They're both have catchy songs.
the most middle of the
line.
Yeah. So this is so moderate.
Both,
I love it.
Fantastic women with skills. Okay. I did this one with Isaac Vega as well. Star Trek or Star Wars?
I would go.
And give me one answer. Give me choose one right now. You have
Star
to choose.
Wars.
Okay.
Star Trek definitely has its merits,
let's see,
but
Well, yes, of course. Okay, come on. Just
I
stick to
enjoy
an
both,
opinion.
but I would definitely lean more Star Wars.
Oh, that's so good.
That's awesome.
I'm not asking you anymore. Oh, those are great. Okay.
Is there one more?
Oh, what was it? Hold on.
Sorry, are you asking all these questions to every guest, or is this going to be?
Yeah, sort of.
It's been.
Okay.
It's kind of been the
Okay.
motif. Yeah.
All right. So, NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
Yeah, that's the one.
Which is the one that had Justin Timberlake? Then let's
NSYNC,
go
the
with
superior
NSYNC.
one.
Yeah. There we go.
NSYNC's
Okay,
back.
okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, so he'll be joining
Yeah.
us for our musical episode.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
you've now officially signed up. We'll be in touch in like the next 3 months.
Okay, so the final question that is a bit more serious. If you could give a word of advice to prospective people, graphic designers in the industry, because they are definitely out there, what is some short advice you would give
Make
them?
sure you set up yourself as an LLC, because that gives you a little bit of protection. Make sure that you save enough money for taxes. My goal is always I just take 35% of anything I make and just keep it in my bank account until I pay taxes on it, because you don't want to have to owe afterwards. Make sure you get a contract signed. Feel free to reach out to me, Peter at maple.games, if you're really getting into it and you want, a plain language contract that is pretty good for you.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to think of other stuff.
That is
But
great.
yeah, it's like you're running a small business. Don't just do things because it gets you exposure. At the end of the day, the only thing exposure gets you is hypothermia and then death. Like, you need to be able to pay your bills. Don't do
I
work
get it
for just the sake of doing work. Like, it's super awesome to be in the board game industry, but make sure that you're getting paid a fair wage, because at the end of the day, like, if you're just trying to, have a race to the bottom on price, you're not going to win, because unless you're living in a place that really has a super low cost of living, you can't compete. So charge what you're worth, and then if people are like, yeah, but we're not going to go with that, it's like, that's fine,
Yeah, that's true.
and
That's awesome. Some great practical advice.
and
Oh, there's
charge hourly, not flat rate, because there's always scope creep, and
Oh yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Scope creep.
That is a fantastic practical advice. Ryan, what practical advice do you have for being a human being in general?
Be happy, much like a clam.
Look at that. Full circle.
Boom, 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 boom.
Well, thanks, everyone. Okay, so where can they find you,
You
Peter,
can go
online?
and find me at boardgame.design. You can follow me on Twitter at Peter Wocken, Wocken. Give a follow to Maple Games or I suppose it'd be maple.games, I think is our address.
I think, on Twitter, maple.games is the website that has links to social media. I think specifically on Twitter it is Maple Board Games.
Most
be
importantly,
able to
follow
find it
me
too.
on Twitch at
Bingo.
twitch.tv/mapleboardgames, because it'd be fun to see you and interact with you, and then who knows, maybe you'll get your name written in some random component, or get a nugget of wisdom.
I'm in it.
I don't know.
Yes. That's awesome. And then find us at Roll Doubles on Twitter. And we have a Facebook page, a Rolling Doubles podcast. You can just search for it, find it somehow that way. And Ryan, you are at?
Yep, I'm at RyGuy314, where I will post about my musings,
Yeah.
mostly board game related.
And please, if you could, go to iTunes and rate us, and go to Google and rate us as people, not like the podcast. I want you to rate me as a human being. I want to know what my value is in your eyes.
And always
From one
round up.
human.
Round up.
Always round up. Always round up.
Yes.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Yes, good night. Thanks again,
Yeah,
Peter.
no problem.
Thanks for listening. Music intro is Siva Play by Fantastic Plastic Machine, and music bumpers were created by myself using Apple Loops and GarageBand for iOS. Join us next week as we drivel on about more board games on another exciting episode of Rolling Doubles Podcast.